ready to explore the Hebrew roots of your Christian faith? Then grab your Bible and let's get started.
Shalom and welcome to Tuesday night Torah Studies. I want to welcome you here. But as we have been working our way through the Torah, I hope that you have been able to take the time out and study for yourself. That you're not learning or depending on any one teacher. After all, you will have to stand before and answer for yourself for the things that you're learning and what you did and did not do. Each day that I have been on this path, I've been working towards being very careful of what I receive. For an example, if someone is teaching the word, I need to examine the word itself. I have to examine and make sure that it is lining up with the whole word. Like the Bereans, I have to make sure that whatever someone is teaching or trying to tell me about the word, that it all lines up with the whole word of truth. And that's something that we all need to be doing. Welcome to Reconcile the Kingdom, where we're working towards becoming a harmony of the whole word of truth. My name is Patrice Robinson, and I greatly appreciate everyone that's able to join me on this live premiere and those who will be joining on the replay. Believe me, everyone is greatly appreciated. So if this is your first time visiting, I welcome you. Maybe your 30th time, I welcome you. Maybe your 300th time, I welcome you too. Everyone is greatly appreciated. But I'm hoping that you are ready to join this family, that you're ready to join this family that has no problem with examining the scriptures, a family that does not mind challenging the religious system teachings that we have been under for hundreds of years, a family that is open to being a lifetime student of the Bible, a family that's ready to explore the Hebrews of the Christian faith. And if you're ready to join this family, it's very easy to join. All you have to do is hit that free subscribe button below. And don't forget the bell, because the bell lets you know when I'm live, when there's any announcements or any updates that is coming from this ministry. And if you are first time visitor, you might know, but those who's been with me for a while, you know that is not the only way that you can support this ministry. You can support this ministry by making comments. I like to hear from you. If you are stopping by, doing a live premiere, or even doing a replay, please send an emoji and let me know that you have stopped by. And you are welcome to make comments. And share the link when you're live. Share the link on the replay, because if you learning something, someone else can learn something. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up. The thumbs up lets you to know that they need to send this ministry out to more people. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify, and of course YouTube and YouTube podcasts. Those are other ways you can support the ministry. And don't forget, we have the online digital shop where you can purchase individual Bible companions and workbook Bible companions that's available in the workshop. Now we are more than halfway through with the book of Genesis, and everyone knows, if you don't, if you're a visitor, the Genesis workbook Bible companion is on sale, 40% off for $7.79. But I don't want us to forget that we are in the book of Genesis, and today we on Genesis chapter 35, but we will be having Exodus coming up, and you can purchase that workbook in the digital online shop. I just don't want anyone shopping and doing the Sabbath day, but you can shop any other time of the day. Now, donate in the love drawer. Donate in the love drawers is you saying that you partnership with me to grow the ministry, and that's the purpose of donating in the love drawer. All these things that we spoke about today, you can find in the description box. You can take a look at that after the live premiere or during the replay. That most definitely is available for you. And thank you once again for paying attention. Now, don't forget, at the end of this teaching on today, you are able to ask questions about the teaching that's presented today. Any other teachings, you're welcome to make comments, ask questions, and things because I still respond to those. Now, today, I encourage your comments. I encourage you sharing throughout the teaching and also doing the replay. We always begin with what we call key points to recap from last Tuesday, which was Genesis chapter 34. And I'm going to bring up my sheet. Those who are visitors, this is one of the sheets that's out of the Bible workbook, and also individual sheets you can purchase. Once again, we on the recaps, key points is coming from Genesis chapter 34. Now, Genesis chapter 34 was particularly mainly about Dinah, because Dinah is the only female out of Jacob, Israel's children. She's the only female. So she decided to, while they're in Shechem, to visit the daughters in Shechem. Unfortunately, this left her vulnerable and she ended up being raped by the prince of Shechem. Now, this caused problems, and her brothers felt they should handle things in their own way. So they used the covenant of Abraham in particular, that Yehovah gave Abraham for his descendants and all those who would join in the covenant of circumcision. They used this to weaken the males of Shechem and made them vulnerable and easy to prey, end up killing the males of Shechem. Now, in the beginning of the chapter of 34, as it was reading, it sounds like maybe it was all the brothers, or we wasn't for sure if all the brothers, or how many brothers was joining in on this deceit scam that they were putting on the people of Shechem. But it turns out it was just Simeon and Levi and not the other sons. Now, Simeon and Levi or the children of Leah, which is Dinah is from. So they were of the same mother. Simeon and Levi killed all the males. Now, these are the males that have been circumcised according to the covenant is 8 days old and older. So they killed all of those males. And when they went to Shechem, they took their sister from the home of the prince of Shechem. So she was there in the land. And we're not for sure if she was in the land at the time they was doing a negotiation for her hand or not. But we do know that they took their sister, and not only did they take her, they took the spoils of the city. They took the women, they took the children, and they took all the valuables from that community of Shechem and brought it to the camp of Israel. Now, my insight it still goes out to Dinah because we don't hear anything else about her. The Bible becomes silent about her from this time forward. And we barely heard about much about her in any of the chapters. And that comes to my question. What happens to Dinah? Because we do know that Dinah was not a virgin at that time anymore. And we read later on that Yehovah gives Moses some specific instructions in Deuteronomy 22, verse 28-29. You will find in my cross reference. When a man comes upon a virgin who has never been engaged and grabs and rapes her, and they find out the man who raped her has to give her father 50 pieces of silver, and he has to marry her because he took advantage of her. At that point, he can never divorce her. So we don't hear anything about what happens to Dinah. So we don't know if she got married again, did she have children, did she get married, did she have children, what happened to her. So in this sheet, I also have the word study, and of course, any other cross-reference is in the cross-reference area. As usual, I will leave my sheet up available for anyone who wants to take a look, and encourage you to share. I'm sorry, your key points, your recaps, your thoughts, your questions, any cross reference that maybe that I missed, or anything that you want to add in about Genesis 34. You most definitely welcome to add that in. Now, don't forget that you should have your Bibles before you and all the writing utensils that you need. And don't forget your worksheet, your workbook, whatever you have available. Now, once again, I keep my workbooks together because I want to pass it on to next generation, and hopefully they pass it on to their next generation, that they will know what I thought about things in the Bible itself. So I hope you have those things together. You cannot test the things I'm telling you or sharing with you or teaching you without the Bible in front of you. That way you can ask questions if you need to as you go along with me. Again, we're on Genesis chapter 34, starting with verse number 1. And Elohim said unto Israel, which is name changed from Jacob to Israel, Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar unto Elohim that appeared unto thee when thou fleetest from the face of Esau, thy brother. Then Israel said unto his household and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. And let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make thee an altar unto Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Israel all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Israel hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed. And the terror of Elohim was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Israel. So Israel came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people there with him. And he built there an altar and called this place El Bethel, because there Elohim appeared unto him when he had fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak. And the name of it was called Eliambah Chaff. Now, there's a lot in this first 8 verses of Genesis chapter 35. Again, there's a lot that's going on. So the family is going back to Bethel. And this is when if you remember, this is when he was fleeing his brother and he went to sleep, and he had a dream about the ladder of heaven, of the angels ascending and descending from heaven. And this is when Israel named that place Bethel, based off that spiritual encounter experience that he had with Yehovah. Now, I'm going to read that to you because you can find that in Genesis 28, verses 18 through 39, 18 through 19. And Jacob arose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of the place Bethel. But the name of the city was called Luz at the first. Now, I thought it was interesting that now he's asking the people before he leaves to put away the strange gods. Now I remember when they was leaving Panedoram from Laban, when the family had a family meeting, when Israel told the family that Yehovah told him to go back to his father's land. He didn't say put away the strange gods. I don't think he thought he even had to do that, because most definitely Rachel and Leah have mentioned Elohim, has mentioned Yehovah, Adonai. So they have mentioned that before. So he may have thought he didn't have to speak about that. But we do know that Rachel stole her father's gods. And you find it in Genesis 31:19. So what's the difference this time that he now has to mention this? Again, I kind of find this interesting that he had to have this conversation now. So, what's the difference? So, what I feel the difference came from his sons, Simeon and Levi. When Simeon and Levi went and got the spoils of Shechem. Remember, he got the women, he got the children, he got the wealth, he stole everything. Well, I say stole, taken all the spoils after they killed all the males. And so what they had came into the camp of Israel. So I'm going to just remind you Genesis 34:28 through 29. This is what the sons have taken as far as the spoils of basically their own personal war. They took their sheep, they took their oxen, they took their asses, that which was in the city, that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, their wives, took they captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. So they took all those things and brung it among Israel camp. And so it makes you wonder how many gods was there. This was a whole different group of people that was joining in. So of course he has to mention get rid of those strange gods because these are new people among the camp. And then when they were leaving, what we find is that the terror of Yehovah kept other people from attacking the family of Israel, the camp of Israel, because of what Simeon and Levi had did. Because again, they killed all the males that were circumcised at Shechem. So Jehovah protected them from all the other communities that were at alliance with Shechem, the Canaanites. Now, again, this act that they did, they used the covenant of that Jehovah gave Abraham as a deceitful tool to do this act. You know, it's not a good thing for them to do, and this is why Jehovah protected them, and so Israel was at peace of this, that there was no one coming after his family. And then lastly, verse 8, we get information about Rebecca's nurse, Deborah. And I'm not for sure where this adds into the information that's provided, but it could be that Jacob, Israel had some type of connection with Deborah because of Rebecca's nurse. Could have been she could have taken care of him and nursed him. You know, that probably is something to know that she was buried at Bethel. So we on Genesis chapter 9, chapter 35, verse 9. And Elohim appeared unto Israel again. And when he came out of Panaram and blessed him, and Elohim said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. Elohim said unto him, I am I am Elohim Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. Right now, we know that there is going to be a kingdom that's going to come out of the children of Israel. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it. To thy seed after thee will I give the land. And Elohim went up from him in the place where he talked with him. Now, these verses 9 through 13, were a spiritual encounter with Yehovah. Jacob was not only a dreamer, he continually experienced spiritual encounters while he was asleep and while he was awake. This here, verses 9 through 13, is the second time that Jacob has been told that his name has been changed. His name and Jacob meant heel holder. because people get to say deceiver of Jacob's name, meaning, but his name means heel holder because he held the heel of Esau. And then it's been changed to Israel, the prince of Elohim. And you find that in Genesis 32, verse 28. I'm going to read it to you. And he said to him, "Thy name should be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince thou power with Elohim, with and with men, and has prevailed." So back in Genesis chapter 32, verse 28, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. And here in verse 35, Jehovah's having this conversation again with him. Is it like a reminder to him that his name has been changed? Probably so. Maybe he wasn't accepting his calling. You know how some of us have a hard time receiving and accepting our calling. And then he says to him, "Be fruitful and multiply, a nation and a company of nations." Now, this fruitful and multiply is different. It's unlike, I should say, the fruitful multiply that we get with the Adam family, where they need to populate the world, and different from when Noah's sons who had to populate the world. Now, this fruitful multiply that Israel received is to produce a nation. And again, a company of nations will come from this. This is how Abraham becomes father of many nations. And Israel is now promised. So the birthright is the promised land that's going to be a part of the inheritance of this specific bloodline. So Jehovah had this conversation with him, then he leaves. So I find that very fascinating that he basically had to remind him that your name has been changed. Verse 14. And Israel set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, where he talked with Jehovah, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. And Israel called the name of the place where Elohim spake with him Bethel. So this time we read about Israel pouring wine and oil at this time. Now, people, when it comes to offerings to Jehovah, most of the time people think about the animal sacrifices, the blood offerings, and not realizing that there's other offerings besides blood offerings. There's the wine, there's the oil, there's the flour, there's the cakes. There are many other offerings besides the blood offering. And we will get to more into that when we get into the book of Exodus, Numbers, when we get farther into the Torah. Verse 16. And they journeyed through Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said unto her, "Fear not, thou shalt have this son also." And it came to pass as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben Noe. But his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Israel set a pillar upon her grave. That is the pillar of Rachel's grave until this day. Now, this is until the day that the time that it was written. It is not until the day that today's date. People get that mixed up. So when they say grave or something to this day, people think of 2023. And of course, we know that many of these sightings are not here. There are some things that are still in the land, but most of the things are not. So now we have Rachel, who has her second son. Now she spoke this into existence. Used to say she spoke this when she had her other child Joseph. When she gave birth to Joseph, she spoke about this. She declared that she's going to have a second son, and we find this in Genesis 30 and verse 24. And she called his name Joseph, and said, Yehovah shall add to me another son. So she knew that she was going to have another son. At least she was expecting to have another son. And so maybe that's something that she was praying for, is for another son. So here we go in verse number 21. And Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the Tower of Edor. And it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. We are going to stop right there. We are going to talk about this. Because it's important to understand this, and I'm going to pull in other scriptures to understand all that's going on. Reuben is the firstborn son of Leah and Israel, Jacob at that time. Now, he had relation with the concubine Bilhah. Bilhah is the mother, surrogate mother of Dan and Naphtali, and he lied with her. Reuben was the firstborn of them all, which means he would be first in line to inherit the firstborn blessing. If you remember, Israel has four firstborn. He has Reuben, he has Joseph, he has Dan, and he has Gad, because there were four women who had firstborns. Now, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, does this act remove him from obtaining or receiving the firstborn blessing? And I would say, yes, it does. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to bring it to your attention in the scripture that this is proof that he loses the firstborn blessing. First, we're going to look at Genesis 49, chapter 49. Now, chapter 49 is at the point where when Israel is at his deathbed and he is given, speaking blessings on his children, speaking into their lives. So we are going to read what he spoke to Reuben about. And this is Genesis 49, verse 3. We're going to start with verse 3 through 4. And he says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, the excellency and excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed. Then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. So this is again Israel speaking to Reuben on his deathbed. But where do we find the scripture that Reuben loses his firstborn blessing, and who does it go to? First Chronicles chapter 5, verse 1. These are the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. Though he was the firstborn, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, son of Israel, because Reuben defiled his father's bed, so he is not reckoned according to the birthright. So Reuben firstborn birthright has been removed from him because he defiled his father's bed. He lied with Israel's concubine, which we find later in the Torah. Yehovah gave instructions to Moses that you are not to lie with your stepmother, and in particular sexual relations that you're not allowed to have. But here, he's been removed. The firstborn birthright blessing has been removed from Reuben and given to Joseph. Joseph's sons in particular, because Joseph now has a double portion. And his two sons, which are from the Egyptian woman, is Ephraim and Manasseh. So that they both inherit the portion of the land. Again, Israel has 12 sons, but we do know, as we have studied in the book of Joshua, that Joseph and Levi did not get no allotment of land. Ephraim and Manasseh got that allotment. Levi was inheriting was to Yehovah the tabernacle, but they did get some cities and inside the different parts of the lands of the allotments, and Joseph double portion went to Ephraim and Manasseh. So these are things important to understand. The one of the important things to understand is that, remember the woman at the well? And you find in John chapter 4, she was at Jacob's well, which is Israel's well, and the Messiah is speaking to her. So that land, as we learned last week, is renamed to Shihar, Shechem, which is in Samaria, which is the allotment the children of Ephraim had that allotment. So she was more likely possibly from the tribe of Ephraim, and not, of course, she wasn't from the tribe of Judah. This is why she didn't recognize herself as a Jew. So these are the things that we learn. Now, verse 23. These the sons of Leah, Reuben, Israel's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun, and of course she has Dinah. So all these are from Leah. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin, and the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. I want you to pay close attention to this little piece of 26 that we're about to read. These are the sons of Israel which were born to him in Padan-aram. Here we have the list of all 12 of the sons. Unfortunately, again, we do not have Dinah. Dinah is not written here at all. But we do need to understand that in Padan-aram, the 11 sons were born there. Benjamin was not born in Padan-aram. We just read in Genesis 35, we go up further, up back to 16 and 19. Rachel goes in labor on the way to Ephrath, and Benjamin was born there. Now, I do have a map so that you can see the distance of the places. Because remember, Ephrath is going to be named Benjamin. Now, I don't know if Moses wrote that or who wrote that, but eventually it's going to be Bethlehem. So if you can see this map, I'm hoping that you can see this map, where kind of you see Jericho, red line, and that's Bethlehem right here south. And Padan-aram is way at the top north. So there's total big difference from these two areas. And this is another reason why when we do study, that you do need to have a map for you, because then you're able to catch some of the mistakes that we find in the Bible, whether it's mistake by the translators or they're trying to translate to give us understanding. But there are mistakes that we do find in the Bible, and we won't catch them unless we go verse by verse. We have the maps in front of us when we study, and we're doing all the tools that we're using, because you most definitely have to use tools to study, because we are thousands of years separated from when these words were written. So those things are important. So I want you to pay attention to the little details that are very easily missed. Verse 27. And Israel came into Isaac, his father, unto Merom, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac was 180 years, so basically 180 years old. And Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and he was gathered to his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. I remember when I was reading this many years ago, I was wondering, was Jacob ever going to see his family again? Was Isaac ever going to see the grandchildren? So I don't read much about Rachel. We do read that she's buried with them, but it seems to me that Israel had time to take his family without Rachel to see Isaac. Because I do know sometimes between verses and chapters, there can be years. So I am believing that he took the family to up unto Isaac, to his father and Mamre. So he got a chance, but he passed. He passed at 180 years old. Now, I'm going to give you the verse where we know that that Rebecca is buried with Isaac, which gives me the thought that she probably passed before Isaac, because we don't see that her any after Isaac. We don't read anything about her. Genesis 49, verse 31. There they buried Abraham. Now, this is actually Israel speaking because he wants to be buried in the family plot that Abraham purchased. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. So Leah was there, Rebekah was there, Isaac was there, and unfortunately Rachel didn't get a chance to get there. So that's where the family plot is, and we know that Rebecca is there. So I'm assuming that again that she passed prior to Isaac, and I feel I'm glad that Jacob and well, Israel and Esau both gathered together and buried their father. And I'm pretty sure that they made peace. Of course, they made peace in what chapter 33, I believe that's when they made peace. Now, I'm done with the reading on today, and I don't have any questions that's been sent to me or anything like that. But I do want to share those who want to hang in a little bit longer. My check in for Genesis 30 to 34, I think I mistakenly said 29 to 34 last week, but it's actually 30 to 34. I kind of want to share this because this to me will always change. This is I will always continue to study through Genesis because I'm a student, so that I will continue to study and get more understanding. So what stood out for me between 30 and 34 was Laban. Laban really stood out to me because he served so many different gods, but he heard from Yehovah, and he knew that Yehovah was with Jacob, but he did not acknowledge to seek after the one Elohim that was speaking to him, the one Elohim that he's seen that can bless someone. He, in other words, he was a polytheistic, meaning he served multiple gods. And I still find that dumbfounded that he actually, instead of the ones that made by his hand and things like that, he rather served those. And what else stood out to me was all the spiritual engagements, the encounters that Jacob had experienced, whether it was again dreams, whether it's by speaking to him, visions, or things like that. He had many spiritual encounters. And another thing that stood out to me was how we didn't hear anything about Dinah. So we have no idea what happened to her life. Now, the focus is on the bloodline the Messiah is coming from. And that leads me, did I find the Messiah? So Jacob bloodline, his birthright was to become the bloodline of the Messiah. That is for us to understand. Esau was not, he despised his birthright, but Jacob was the chosen one in his mother's womb. Yehovah spoke about him. So he was chosen already to be the bloodline of the Messiah. And that bloodline inherits the land. So that is that covenant. Now, what have I applied so far? I most definitely avoid making vows. I do not make any vows because I don't want to figure them and I don't want to make any mistakes by making a vow to Jehovah and not keeping it. And I avoid the tradition of men, especially when it comes to those eating, because Jacob, Israel, at the time his name was Jacob before he was changed to Israel, he was wrestling with Yehovah, and his hip got out of joint, and so he started walking with a limp. And so the tradition of the children of Israel was to not eat the muscle of the hip joint. Again, that's tradition, it's not a law. And so I most definitely try to make sure that I don't teach tradition of men as a law, as a requirement, or as a commandment of Yehovah. So, what are my next steps? I will continue my daily studies. I will continue my personal daily studies because I have daily studies that I do to prepare for each teaching on Tuesdays for Torah studies at 7 o'clock p.m. and for the book study of Judges on Saturdays at 10 a.m. So I have those two studies, and then I have my personal studies that I do on my own for other books. I also want to continue asking myself questions each time I study because that, when I ask questions, that makes me dig deeper in the word of Yehovah. I it's just it's needed to have the whole word to come together because if you don't ask questions, what understanding are you getting? The Bible leaves me with questions, and not all of my questions are going to be answered, and I'm okay with that. And I don't have all the answers, and I'm okay with that. We learn from each other, and this is why I don't mind you sharing your comments, your questions, your insights, your key points. What are you learning out of each chapter that we're under? Now, what am I doing about my prayer? So, listening to his name was Jacob at the time, Israel's how he demonstrated that honesty about his fear of his brother. I need to continue to be honest with myself so that I can be honest in my prayer. Sometimes I feel like I withhold those things that I'm concerned about or worried about and brush it as not a worry instead of learning to put those things on Jehovah. Because they'll continue to pop my head. Yes, I know what scripture to bring to help me at times, but I not bring it into prayer. I feel like because I'm using the scriptures and standing on the scriptures that I'm not still bringing it to him to help me with it. Maybe if I do more of that, it will pop less into my head. I need to be more honest with myself about many things so that I can walk in freedom and at peace of things. Those are some things that I continue to learn in my life as a mother, as a wife, as a grandmother. There's things that come up to me that I need to lay to Jehovah and ask for the plan, ask guidance for those things. You know, sometimes we have to ask for those secret things to be revealed to us so we can have that plan. And, a lot of times things come into my dream and I have to write it down because sometimes those are answers to my prayer. So I want to continue to work on being honest with myself and prayer. Now, I do have Judges check in before because it is time for judges, and I may or may not share, but we will see on Tuesday. I'm sorry, Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. if I'm going to share that. So I'm hoping that you're learning something before you leave. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to look around and browse on the YouTube channel and join me on Facebook, join me on Instagram, and those other areas that you can join me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. So, as always, man does not live by the word Man does not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yehovah. May Yehovah bless you. Have a blessed rest of the day. Thank you.